Hello, my fellow webheads. It's your friendly neighborhood Jerry Rasco, and we are back again today to talk about the Amazing Spider-Man. We have a really good issue to check out today. I'm super excited. Of course, I want to thank everybody for your support. We are up above 400 subscribers as of the recording of this video, and so we are making great strides towards our goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2026. So thank you all for subscribing. Thank everybody who has shared out the channel in these series. It has been absolutely amazing, the support. So again, thank you all so much for that. Of course, I always want to talk about what we've got going on here. And very importantly, as of, again, the recording of this video, we have a new series on the channel. So we've added a 4th review series, and there is one episode out so far, and it ties into the free artwork giveaway. So let me grab that artwork and we're going to talk about it real quick. So if you've been around here for a while, you know. If you're new, we are celebrating when we reach 1,000 subscribers. I am going to pick random subscribers who will win free artwork. There's no purchase necessary. I will even cover the shipping to you. I will send you this artwork for free. All you have to do is be a subscriber when we hit the 1,000 subscriber mark. And I have a piece of artwork to celebrate each of these comic review series on the channel. So this is the new one. So we have the Avengers. And again, as of the recording of this video, the video for Avengers #1 is out. We reviewed that. So that's going to be coming out every week. So you could win that piece of artwork. Of course, we also have the X-Men here in their original school uniforms. This series is out. It's still fairly new, but you can always check out all the back episodes on the playlist there. That one's a little shorter, so if you're not following along the X-Men series, you can catch up to that one pretty quick. The second series that we did on the channel is the Incredible Hulk. We're continuing to go through that. That one is a little bit further along, but again, all those episodes are in the playlist, so you can always go back and check those out. You could win this Incredible Hulk piece. Of course, we have Spidey, which we're going to be talking about today. That's what kicked it all off. So here's my Amazing Spider-Man piece. This could be yours, again, just by clicking that subscribe button. And then there are 2 more series to come. Very soon, we have Captain America. So this one I'm kind of timing so that I'll have covered his return in the Avengers. And then we'll get into his solo series. So I didn't want to confuse anybody who is following along with multiple series on the channel. So we're going to kick off the Captain America one after he has been introduced in the Avengers. And then, of course, we have the Fantastic Four, the first family of Marvel. So we'll be doing that one as well. So all of this artwork is going to go to a bunch of subscribers just by clicking that button. So if you haven't, please consider it. And we do have new videos out every week. So if you enjoy it, this is content that you can watch regularly. You can go back and binge episodes. There's a lot on the channel, so please consider subscribing and checking that out. That said, we're going to cut over to the comic. We're going to check this out together again. This is one of the better ones. I'm very excited to review this with you. So we have the cover to The Amazing Spider-Man #70. This is phenomenal. I really like this cover. So the spotlight is on Spidey, quite literally, and so that using the muted colors around him plus the yellow, which is our 3rd primary color. So we have red, yellow, and blue. We've got our 3 primaries there. The rest are all muted versions, and it really helps pop Spidey out and make him front and center to our attention, which is exactly what we want. This is a very classic motif. We've seen this with lots and lots of covers over the years. I don't know if it's actually the first one, but I think probably one of the most recognizable ones is Batman and Robin from, I think, Detective Comics, probably. Very early one with the Caped Crusader and the Boy Wonder and the spotlight on them both. So we've seen this motif throughout comics history for sure, but it's always nice because Spidey can stick to the wall. So that adds an element to this design that isn't there for maybe other characters, right? And then, of course, you have the guns. So the police are pointing guns at Spidey, so that brings in that peril, that danger. Our hero is in a precarious situation. How will they get out of it? And that is key to making our hero even more heroic. They must overcome nearly impossible odds, right? That's what makes them so heroic. The last thing I want to talk about this, and I'm actually going to zoom in so you can see, because this is just an awesome little detail here. You can see that, so this is a brick wall, and in the shadows, the bricks are drawn. Let's zoom in really close here so you can see where the individual brickwork, because this is really cool. The individual bricks are drawn, and then they're using hatch lines up and down to sort of shadow them, and then even thicker hatch lines in the darker areas and a darker color behind them. So that's really nice, subtle technique that's all done with just black and white to separate darker, lighter. If this was all the same color, if the red kind of behind the brick and the red up here in the shadow, even if it was the same color, the difference in the ink line and the amount of ink would help us separate dark, medium, and light. And then the other part, so now we come over to this part of the wall, and just the top part of the brick is drawn as if it's casting a shadow, because the bricks don't lay perfectly flat, right? And so that light is coming up slightly. That's why Spidey's shadow's behind him. So the top of the brick is outlined. So instead of drawing the whole brick, just that sort of shadow that it would cast on the top, where that, in that groove where the mortar would be, absolutely perfect. A great technique and very simple way to make those bricks in the wall there, but make them really feel like they're being affected by the light. So that is just absolutely phenomenal. I think this is a super cover. As I always tell you in this part of the video, this is a scanned PDF copy of this comic. So back in 2004, Marvel got their hands on all these comics, scanned them, and sold them. The version I got was on individual CD-ROM drives. So not one issue per CD-ROM drive, but it might have 6 or 7 issues. So it was a big stack of CD-ROM drives to cover the whole series. But what I really like about it, it is the original version of this comic. There's no digital recoloring. There's no changes in the page turns. There's no inserts. There's no anything like that. This is as close as we could get to what that comic was the day it came out. So I think that's really important. This is from 1969. We have our creative team. We have Stan Lee writing. We have John Romita as I'm going to say penciler. Jim Mooney is inker. Again, they're using different terms like innovator and illustrator. So it's not exactly the clear delineation, if you will, between inker, penciler, layouts, finisher, that kind of stuff. Regardless, I'm just going to say pencils and inks right now because I don't have any specific details on the full breakdown. But overall, the team was what we've seen recently in the past few issues, and it's awesome. I do want to just recap real quick. So what's happened is, in terms of this particular storyline that just kicked off recently, the Kingpin is interested in this ancient tablet that archaeologists have found. He doesn't know why. He just knows that it's valuable and it's probably going to be important. So the Kingpin uses distractions on the campus of Empire State University, where Peter Parker goes to school, and moves in to steal this this tablet. Spidey chases him, fights off the team, fights off the Kingpin and his thugs, and manages to get the tablet, which he was going to return to the police. But as the Kingpin is being arrested, he insinuates that he and Spidey are partners and working together on this. So now the police are after Spider-Man based on the word of a clear criminal, a caught you red-handed criminal. They're taking his word for it, even though Spidey was like, "Hey, everybody, I got the I found something. I'm giving you the tablet back." And they were like, "It's him. Shoot." So Spidey is now on the run from the police, as well as trying to figure out what to do with this tablet. So that's what's going on. So we start off in jail here, and this is a great splash page. This is a terrific concept way to put both Spidey and the Kingpin in the same splash page. The Kingpin's face is great. He's got this uncontrollable rage that not so much that he's been caught. You'll see he's not really concerned about being caught and being put in jail. He's just angry that Spidey has taken this thing from him, and when he wants something, nobody else should have it, right? But that anger is unbelievable. It's drawn out perfectly on that face. The lighting is good. This is a really nice image there. I do want to point this out because it actually took me a few more pages. I'll tell you when. Let me see here. It took me until page 3 to notice, but it's right here on page 1. So this photo of Spidey, I do have this question. Who took this picture of Spider-Man? So normally, right, it's Peter Parker. He sets up his camera, it automatically takes pictures, and then he brings them to the Daily Bugle. That's how you get good pictures of Spider-Man. This one, he has the tablet. Even if Peter set up his camera, he's been on the run, going from stopping the Kingpin, grabbing this tablet. As we cut back, he is still swinging in the city with the tablet, trying to think about, trying to figure out what he's going to do. The police after him. He has not had time to develop any pictures and sell them to the Bugle. So I'm curious who the photographer was. But here's the point I didn't see. The holes in the costume. So if you didn't see the previous episode, go back and check it out real quick. But Spidey uses a web dummy wearing his Spider-Man costume, just the shirt part, to get to basically trip a trap that the Kingpin has set. So the Kingpin and his goons are waiting for Spidey to come in through this entrance, and they open fire on him, and it's just a web dummy. But it puts holes in his shirt, which kind of disappeared in that issue, but they're here. So John Romita and Jim Mooney as artists have continued the continuity of showing the holes in the costume because he hasn't had time to stop and either replace it or fix it. So that is great detail that I missed all the way until over here on page 3 when I noticed it on his chest. And I was like, what is that? Is that little supposed to be little stars or what is it? And then I realized, oh no, that's here. And you see it on the back here. It's those bullet holes. So that's a great detail. Over here on the left-hand page, we've got the Kingpin, and the prison guards are kind of giving him the business, and he is angry, but he's got to make sure that he doesn't let Spidey off the hook, right? He's got to keep up the pretense that they were partners. This lighting is terrific. So the way that the Kingpin is lit, the shadows are always going to be on the opposite side of light. That's obviously how shadows work. So his face is lit up. His shoulders and hands are all lit up on the front. The bars are lit up, and the darkness is behind him. So the light is coming from outside his cell towards him. But here's the best part. The light goes in both directions. So on the police officer over here, the side facing the Kingpin is in the light, and the side facing away is in the dark. So the light is somewhere to the center of them, probably you assume up overhead. And so it's lighting them correctly, meaning it's lighting this guy's side, which is facing the Kingpin. The light is on this side of the Kingpin facing the guard, and they have shadows on the opposite sides of them. Perfect. That is really great lighting. I love it. It's terrific. And then just throughout the page, the Kingpin, all these poses, and him just, just basically just shaking the cage of the jail cell like a zoo animal, just like the rage and the just unbelievable, anger, to the point where he literally is like, I'm going to break out of jail with my bare hands. And not at like a window. Like, I'm not going to work the bars loose of a window, classic movie type stuff. No. He is like, I'm going to grip the bars of the door and twist them back and forth slowly until I can break through the cell door. So that's pretty cool. So obviously here, Spidey is incredibly upset about what's going on, and the fact that, and I agree, the fact that immediately the police are going to take the word of a, again, convicted. He hasn't been convicted because he hasn't gone to in front of a court or judge or anything, but a clearly red-handed criminal. This guy was caught red-handed, in a jail cell, and his word has police officers shooting at Spidey on sight. Like, after everything he's done, after all the good he's done, after all the criminals he stopped, after all the things, they're just ready to shoot at him over somebody else's word. And so he is very moody. And so you have moody lighting. You have him facing the moon. So the side, just like the Kingpin over here on the other side, the side facing away from the light source, the moon, is going to be dark. So it's really nice, moody lighting in a moody, dark, bent over pose. The whole thing works great. I even really love the texture here in the sky, which, if I'm not mistaken, I would say that is not hand done. This is going to be Zipatone. And if you missed that, we've talked about this in previous episodes. You can go back and see, but it's basically a stick-on pattern that you can trim and cut out to fit specific shapes in a comic, and add these textures to it. So I'm going to assume that that is some Zipatone in the sky to add some even more moody texture. Same thing here as Spidey swings off. And then this one is just awesome. My note here is about the backgrounds. These backgrounds in this panel are superb. Some windows being lit, some not. The muted colors, the perspective, getting all the buildings right, and then leaving blank space enough around Spidey so that he's swinging, so things aren't conflicting with the web line, his hand, the more delicate parts or more small detail parts of him. We want that front and center, and so you just sort of, black out, or just sort of, or not blank out, or give little suggestions that there's, maybe buildings and roads and stuff below, but the rest of the background sets it up enough that that's all we need. So really excellent background work there. And, not crazy. Like, not every brick is drawn, not every window, we don't see inside the windows. Like, you can go with insane detail if you want to. It's not needed. We're here to focus on Spidey, but we just need enough of the background details to let us know he's swinging over the city. And that's fantastic. Here, he has that moment of like, why do I bother? Why am I doing this? Everybody's, out to get me because, I'm wearing this stupid suit, and what am I getting out of it? I'm almost dying. People are shooting at me. If anybody has an excuse to really become a bad guy, it's me. And then he kind of goes, whoa, wait, calm down, pull yourself together. So I do like the fact that it doesn't last long. He doesn't go like a whole issue of like, that's it, I'm going on a crime spree, and then coming to his senses at the end. He has a moment of doubt and frustration, which is fair, and then kind of pulls himself together, and he's like, whoa, let's one step at a time here, take it easy. But it's all very good stuff. Trying to figure out what he's going to do with this tablet, and a beat cop shoots at him. These are great great camera angles, moving around the imagery so that we're looking at different angles all the time. So here we're above, then we're looking from below. Now we're back kind of above and even with Spidey. Now we're back down lower, looking at both this cop and him. And I like the open palm. So we've seen this a few times, and again, it's very subtle. If you drew Spidey making a fist and punching the gun out of the guy's hand, nobody's going to question it. But the fact that because he has superpowers, and it's a police officer and he doesn't want to hurt anybody, he is using that open palm to just knock the gun away, which tells you, as frustrated as Spidey may be, obviously he's still concerned about hurting innocent people. So he's not really going bad. So yeah, thinking all this stuff, and then he's like, "Why don't I just take it home with me?" Nobody's gonna go, "Hey, I bet Peter Parker has that tablet." So there you go. And he tries to get some sleep, and then we've got this montage of all the things going on in his life. Not only for Spidey, he meant, at the very end he mentions the Kingpin, but the rest of it is really Peter Parker. So that's a nice, good way to recap the stuff that's going on in Peter's personal life in terms of Aunt May, J. Jonah Jameson, his relationship with Gwen, her dad, the stuff happening with the campus guys, his friend, new friend Randy, his dad, etc. So it's a nice recap there. And then what we've got is, obviously this is, his brain is going a million miles an hour. I've certainly personally had that same thing where you can't shut your brain off and go to sleep, and you just spend a night tossing and turning, and the next day you're exhausted, which is exactly what we see here. Now, this is a really good transition. What I mean by that is we're changing scenes. We're going from Peter's bedroom, where has full of self-doubts, to the campus where he's walking to class and he's very tired and he's sort of, again, in his own head. The reason this is a good transition is because visually it makes sense. We go from Peter in his room to a very similar pose, even though he's not in shadow. That might have helped if we had sort of silhouetted at least part of his face a little bit, like he was underneath the tree. But even so, we have Peter in sort of a similar stance, head down, profile pose. So visually we can go, okay, I understand going from this page to this page, and now we've changed scenes. So that's a good transition. And then, now he's confronting, I guess Gwen is confronting him. So Stacy is finally picking up that, gee, when things get crazy, Peter is never around, and he always has this excuse of taking pictures, but sometimes he's just not around, and so there's a lot of questions. So she's upset because she doubts him, and there's a lot of that stuff going on. This is a bad transition. Oops. Sorry about that. That is a bad transition. That is a bad transition. No, this is a bad transition. And what I mean is we have Peter and Gwen, kind of their conversation coming to a head. Gwen is crying. He's like, "You're calling me a coward." And really she's basically saying, yeah. And now we cut to J. Jonah Jameson on a rant with Robbie Robertson, who's waiting to find out what's going to happen to his son at the police station. So not good. There's nothing visual that ties it together. There's nothing story-wise that ties it together. We're not talking about cowardice or relationships or anything. It's just a transition to get us from one scene to the next, and it makes no sense from one panel to another. We do kind of get the conclusion of the whole campus protest thing. We talked about that before. We're not going to dip into the politics of the protesting, the people getting arrested, the whatever. Just talking about it from an artistic standpoint, it's perfectly fine. It's a bunch of talking heads, and it just kind of wraps up a subplot thread that none of the students are going to get what they wanted. They're going to get low rent dormitories. They're going to change the exhibit hall to low rent dorms, and nobody's being charged with any crimes because obviously they were peacefully protesting, and then the Kingpin stole this thing, so they had nothing to do with it. Everything works out in the end. Then we cut to the Kingpin again. Another bad transition. It just doesn't make sense. Why would I go from these guys? Now, if somebody over here was frustrated with something and was clenching their hands, and then you cut to the Kingpin clenching his hands, that's a good visual transition. It makes sense. We absolutely don't have that. We have literally the opposite of a good transition. Everything is kind of wrapping up peacefully, pleasantly. Things are good. From panel, now we go to the Kingpin, who's like super mad, and he's getting ready to break out of jail. So story-wise doesn't transition, visually doesn't transition. However, I will say this illustration of the Kingpin is incredible. And the fact that it's just one panel, for me, I would want to see this as the first panel of the next page. That's how I would handle that transition, because I think it makes a lot of sense. And this image is so strong that I would absolutely want it to be the first panel on a new page that the reader is reading. The size of the fists are terrific. The eye being so wide open, the pupil being really narrow. I love the hatching of the shadow of the bars across his face. So again, we still know that the light is coming from outside into the cell. Everything is perfect. Even the slight Dutch angle. So we've gone from, of course, these bars would be perfectly perpendicular to the ground, 90-degree angle straight up and down. We twisted everything because he's twisting. So again, just gives us that more energy, and it's leaning towards the end of the page. So it leans us towards that page turn. Really, really nice illustration there. Absolutely terrific panel. And the Kingpin breaks out. And at this point I said, geez, Stan is playing this guy up like he is the Juggernaut. So if you're not a fan of the X-Men and you don't know who the Juggernaut is an X-Men foe who is gigantic, probably 7-8 feet tall, 800-900 pounds, if not more, of magically powered, unstoppable force and muscle, right? He's not as strong as the Hulk, but he's in that range. And when he walks, the earth shakes. And once he starts moving, nothing can stop him. And the Kingpin is sort of played that way here. I mean, the guy literally just rips bars out with his bare hands. As he's walking, his footsteps are echoing like it's shaking the ground that he's walking on. I know he's a big guy, but even at 500 pounds, he's big, but he's not shaking a prison floor. We're not hearing bass drums of boom, boom. This isn't Godzilla. So they're really playing up this guy's strength and power, the physicality of the Kingpin, where later when we get to the way Frank Miller used him in Daredevil, his size, strength, ferocity is his backup. It's his mind that's the main danger when it comes to the Kingpin. One thing I will point out, never ever do this. Don't have your character, the edge of their foot, hand, whatever, resting right on the end of, or right on the line, the border of a panel. It does not put them into the panel. It takes away some of that depth. It puts them on the same plane as the gutter here, and it just sort of breaks some of that illusion. It's just something to avoid as much as possible. Kingpin makes it out. We have some pretty good swinging poses here of Spidey. Nothing crazy. Excuse me. Nothing crazy. And then, boom, the spotlight on him. Just like we had the cover. So here's the cover, right? The police have the spotlight on Spidey. They found him. There's people pointing guns, but they let it slip that the Kingpin might be here as well. So he's like, oh, then if they don't know where he is, then obviously he has escaped. So Spidey's going to take off. Now, sorry, water. This is thirsty work, everybody. I don't like panel 2 here. So it took me a minute to kind of figure out what was happening because the visuals don't work so well. So they have the spotlight, which is mounted to the car. Now, the way that they're here, it almost looks like this guy could be holding it in his hand. But so that's one issue to start with. Then he swings down, hits it, and then swings up away so that he's out of range as they start shooting at him. But his body posture, he's not far enough over. He's really still kind of right above the car as opposed to swinging away from the car. It's I feel like his body should be more forward because he's heading to the top end of this swing. There's this cloud, and everybody who's firing guns, there's at least 1, 2 that are actually firing, and then this guy has a cloud of smoke around him, but that cloud we don't see a gun or anything in his hand. And then you have, it's sort of connected to the motion line of Spidey hitting. So basically what's happening is he's just punched out the light to take the light down. But it almost looks like this smoke is somehow part of this motion as opposed to it being the gun. Again, this is all stuff that I had to stop, and in the middle of reading, just reading through the comic, I had to stop and go, wait, what is happening here? And anytime that happens with your readers, that means that that panel isn't working and we should probably try something else. So that's all that, to me, it just doesn't work well. Here's where I would have done it. And again, hindsight's 2020. I would have just had gone from this, which is a nice wide shot. You have the wall, all the crowd, the cops, everybody. I would have shown a close up of this guy here, the light, and I would have had Spidey's webbing either covering the light or even breaking the light, like the force of the end. Instead of just a line, maybe I would have made it more of like a plug or a ball at the end of his web line and had it smash into and break the lens of the light, and that guy reflecting, reacting to the glass, kind of shattering. Then we could have cut to just Spidey swinging away, which would have been fine, right? We didn't necessarily need that. You could have even, as the web line is smashing this, you could have had a couple other cops in the background firing their guns. That would have worked as well, and then Spidey swinging away. So that's how I would have done it. And I think it would have just been more effective than this awkward, angle composition. I'll call it that way. I'd say the composition of this panel is awkward. This swinging is great, by the way. I really want to point that out. One of the things that I find many artists have difficulty with is compressing the lower half of a human body in motion when you're bent over or bending over. Meaning what happens a lot of times is everybody knows they'll tip the head forward, they'll put the shoulders behind the head, which we have here, they'll do hands coming forward, stuff like that. That all works. But there's a curve to the back and your abdomen is going to be compressed. It's not going to be as long as if you're standing up. It's going to be compressed down because it's squishing down as you bend forward. And a lot of people will just draw from like the chest down, this sort of straight up and down, and just have them pivot almost like at the sternum, like a action figure. That's not how the human body works. Your whole body is going to bend. If anything, you're going to bend more at your abdomen and lower back than you can hunching just your top of your upper back, right? That's going to bend more at the waist, which is more of a pivot point than, mid back. So this is done really well, I think, to sort of compress that lower torso and hips. And it's a really nice swinging pose. So Spidey has the idea, listen, none of this is going to work out until I gotta get this Kingpin, and I gotta, clear my name. And so what he does, he starts, going around town, roughing up, some of the Kingpin's men to try to get some answers, and then, or basically get them to report back to wherever the Kingpin is that, hey, Spidey's got the tablet and he's looking for you. And hopefully that'll get back to the Kingpin, right? So this montage of him beating guys up is terrific. I'm going to zoom in here because what I want to focus on that I really like, again, is this open hand. The idea that, again, Spidey, we forget so much because he doesn't have a ton of... his rogues gallery is not based on massive super strength, right? It's not like the Hulk. It's not like, again, some of the X-Men villains. His characters are either on par with him, or sometimes they're just human. They're criminals. They're, they're part of organized crime families. There's stuff like that. Like Spidey's more ground level heroes, at least at this stage of the game. And so for him to just haul off and punch guys, he could literally decapitate people. Forget, the man can pick up cars over his head without straining, he could punch a person's head off. So for him to use open hand on regular thugs, I think is a really nice storytelling touch that maybe we've kind of forgotten about. And then the spider signal, I haven't seen it in a while, and I kind of forgot about it as well. And I actually went back to go, hey, when was the first time we saw the Spidey signal being used? And my answer was all the way back in Amazing Spider-Man #3. So we forget that Spidey has a utility belt. It's not as versatile or as story critical as Batman's utility belt, but his utility belt, it's got his camera, it's got the spider signal belt buckle, it's got his extra web cartridges, and then if something else was needed, something special, he can do that as well. So yeah, we kind of forget Spidey's utility belt is definitely an unsung part of his repertoire that we always think of his web shears. We forget about the utility belt. So I wanted to point that out because I think it's a really great touch. Again, more great poses here. This vaulting over, again, Dutch angle, moving us, and it again, in the direction of where our eyes are going to go. We're going to go from top left to the next panel. He's shooting a web in that direction, so things get tilted in that direction. Perfect. And it makes it feel like he's moving forward quickly at a pace, because he's essentially, to our brain, going downhill. That's how that works. And this little vault, the fingers on the edge of this chimney as he jumps over it is great. It's just a perfect way when you want to show somebody moving like that, adds speed and energy. It's terrific. This is a nice down shot. He sees guys that he thinks is some sort of hijacking. It turns out this is a trap put together by the Kingpin, but that's okay because that's exactly what Spidey wants. He's been trying to call out the Kingpin, so it's not as much of a trap as they think it is. But a nice down shot there where we see the ground and good perspective on the simple buildings, but very nice established there. Now we cut very low, almost underneath, right, the front bumper of this car, looking up at the guys. So that's nice there. And then who appears but the Kingpin? And what I want to say with this, the action of this is terrific. I'm going to, let's talk about the Kingpin's punches. So the Kingpin is swinging with everything he has. And we know that because of how far apart his feet and hands are from each other, how much they are separated and pulled apart, so that body is in this big curve. And that's, again, where you get that energy from. So I'm going to insert an image here that I've used before it is from How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And you can see, that idea of an extreme, not angle's not the right word, but the extreme ends of the motion are where the best energy is. And what we're seeing, back here on the comic with the Kingpin is that extreme end of that motion. So all the weight, all the wind up, everything is being put into these punches. Now, I do want to talk about this because I would guess most people, certainly my age, and I'm no spring chicken, I'm Gen X, and I'm looking at this going, I don't know what Simonize is. So you'll ruin the Simonize. So I actually had to look it up. So Simonize is the polish or shine, or to polish or shine an object to a high sheen, most commonly referencing detailing vehicles. It comes from the name of a brand of wax that was used to wax vehicles and give them a shiny appearance. So that's what Simonize is. So yeah, I had no idea. It's a term obviously I don't think anybody uses today, but that's where that came from. So one of the things to point out here, when you read comics, you can 100% improve your vocabulary. So anybody that says comics are not a good thing for kids to read because there's violence and things of that nature, well, let me tell you, there's also a lot of great vocabulary. So give those kids comics. Again, terrific angles, great low angle as Spidey swings in to deliver this massive kick to the Kingpin. Obviously, he is going to be able to take quite a bit of abuse, which is exactly what happens. Even that kick doesn't put him down for very long. But a low angle and then some good stuff there. And then all of a sudden, who appears but J. Jonah Jameson in a Daily Bugle car? What? So, of course, it's real. There's two ways we could talk about this. You could talk about the people like they're real. What was J. Jonah Jameson thinking to go, hey, let's drive around. I see the Spider-Man and the Kingpin fighting each other. Let's drive in the middle of them because they're going to just, what? Surrender to you, Mr. Newspaper publisher? Like, you have no authority. You have no leverage. You certainly aren't physically capable of doing anything to these two people. So what was the plan? Even if his plan was to try to, like, I'll make a citizen's arrest, why wouldn't you wait for one to absolutely defeat the other, beat them into unconsciousness? Then you only have to deal with one. If you think the two of them are equal criminals that are working together but fighting over the spoils, wait till one's down. It makes no sense. Then you can talk about the writing. Obviously, these are fictional characters. They have no motivations of their own. Why? What is the point of J. Jonah Jameson getting in the middle of this? Well, obviously, Stan, as the writer, needed some sort of a plot device that would allow the Kingpin to escape so that we can continue this storyline, right? This isn't the end, so we don't have a big blowout of Spidey just beating the Kingpin down and then kind of wrapping things up. We're going to continue. So to make an escape, we need some sort of a diversion, and Jameson is the idiot who steps in the middle. So that's your story logic, but your character logic, I'm just like, wow, makes no sense at all. And then a new ride shows up, grabs the Kingpin, and off they go. And one of the things I would say, so, I mean, we can, my notes here say, the car doesn't have enough room. So one of the things we talk about this a lot in the series, as well as other series, is the 180 degree rule. And these two panels absolutely break the 180 degree rule. However, it's okay, and I'll explain why. So basically what it means is if our eyes are the camera, we're viewing this scene as if it is real, we are positioned basically in line with the front corner of this bumper, and we're watching. So if you have a line that goes straight through our eyes, straight through, right, that would sort of go up straight through the middle of this panel, we can go 180 degrees either way. Well, we kind of jump all the way to the other side, and now we have completely flipped the angle. So if a circle's 360 degrees, we split it, half of that is 180, and we have jumped from one half of a circle to the other half of the circle. So everything is flip-flopped, right? Direction, the side, we're on the passenger side, now we're on the driver's side. The reason that it works is because everything else stays consistent. The wording on the car flips so that we can see we can see in the Daily Bugle car being Ned Leeds driving, as opposed to over here we see Jameson in the passenger seat. That all works. The colors of the cars, Spidey, jumps out of the way onto this sort of gray car, and now this bluish car pulls in. So it's clear to us what's happening. It's not confusing as to why all of a sudden everybody's facing the wrong direction. It's cool because all the signals are there to tell us, hey, we've just flipped sides, which is no big deal. Where I say the blue car doesn't work is because if you look here, here's Jameson in his car. The Kingpin is kneeling in the road. There's not a lot of space between him and the curb, but there's a whole car pulls in, and these are not like modern, compacts. These things are boats on wheels, and you can see as they drive off, they are between the Daily Bugle car and the sidewalk. So there's enough room for this big car over there. It doesn't really look like there is here. That could just be not an optical illusion, if you will, but like the space might be compressed visually because it's going away from us a little bit. It's nitpicky, but it's also something that is really easily fixed by just cutting back and making the road wider and just making this sidewalk a little narrower. You do that and everything's hunky-dory. So just one of those things. And then, of course, Jameson can't leave well enough alone. He screws everything up, blames Spidey, keeps coming after him. And finally, J. Jonah Jameson is going to get what he deserves. Spidey's... And all he's doing is like, he grabs him by the collar, and he's like, we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty on this, and what's your problem? So Spidey's not punching him. He's not threatening him with violence. He's not like, I'm going to rip your head off. It's just like, hey, no more. You're not running away from me. Let's get down to business. Let's get down to brass tacks. What's your problem here? And the fear on Jameson's face is palpable. Like, I actually said in my notes that if you had taken this face and put it into a comic book, for, like a EC Comics, one of their horror comics was House of Mystery or, one of those kind of things. And instead of Spidey's hands, it was like, let's say it's like Frankenstein's monsters got this guy by the collar. I don't know that you could have drawn him any more afraid. This is ultimate fear. The only issue I had with this is his hair. Now, here's where, stick with me on this. J. Jonah Jameson has a flat top haircut. I understand. I have a relatively similar, short, spiky haircut. What happens is your head is not flat. You can cut the hair to appear flat, but that means some of it is longer, some of it is shorter. And realistically, there's still going to be a slight crown because top of your head is round. Now, this is an upshot. We are looking up. We see the underneath of his nose. We see the underside of his upper jaw. And so as that happens, the top of his head should slightly curve away, and that hair should be slightly higher in the front and curve down to the side slightly, just because it's tipping an egg backwards, if you will. So that top curve is going to become more pronounced, and so the hair should really be curved as well. That's the only criticism I have of it, and I'm happy to overlook it based on the rest of it. And then Jameson passes out, and of course Ned is an idiot. Spoilers, Jameson's fine. He just passed out because he's a coward. But Ned Leeds is like, I don't feel his pulse. Well, dum-dum, either you're saying that to be a jerk, or you have no idea how to tell if someone's alive or dead, you idiot. So he does not have a heart attack. He just was like, it was just shock, and he fainted like a child, like a coward. But now Spidey's like, great, now I've killed somebody. Even this guy was, harassing me, belittling me, making my life miserable, trying to sick the police on me even more. And all I did was finally stand up for myself, and now I've killed him. And so now what's he going to do? This image of him, as dark as it gets, is perfect, right? He's in a real dark place, so it's excellent. I really, really love it. And then we end with him brooding. Now, we usually get the end of an issue where something has happened and Peter is brooding, and usually in the dark. Now we have Spider-Man brooding almost as a spider, right? He really looks spider-like with the arms and legs all curled up. The fact that they're bent, like his knees almost work visually like multiple legs. So he just looks really spider-like in the middle of this web. So it's really so much like, it's not Peter brooding over the situation. This is the spider. This is Spidey doing it. And that's something that we haven't really seen before. So that's an interesting concept, that there's a little separation here of maybe Peter and Spider-Man, maybe more than we've seen before. And that is the end of the issue. So we're going to head over to the desk and we're going to wrap it all up. So when I told you this was a good one, hopefully you agree with me after this review. I love this issue. There's so many good things. There's so very few minute critiques that I had of things that maybe didn't work. Some transitions from scene to scene that I think could have been handled differently. There was the one scene of Spidey punching out the light that I thought was very unclear, and I had a suggestion on a different way I would have handled it. But overall, it moves through the story. There's enough action to keep going. There's a few points here and there where we're getting into subplot or wrapping up story, B, C, D storylines, and kind of seeing what the rest of the people in Spidey's life are doing. But mostly this is focusing on Spidey as Spider-Man, and I love it. I'm going to, my ranking, I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10. The only reason I didn't give it a 9 out of 10 is I would have liked that last fight, the Kingpin Spidey fight, to go a little bit longer. There was sort of a couple of missed punches by the Kingpin, a kick by Spidey, and that was sort of it. That could have gone on. I'll take more Kingpin Spider-Man fist fights all day, every day. That would have bumped it to a 9 for me. But otherwise, an 8.5 out of 10 means this is a great issue. Highly recommend it. Make sure if you want to get your hands on it somehow, read this. It's an awesome, awesome comic. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd be curious to hear. Please feel free to leave comments if you think you have a different rating, if there's any kind of history, if this was your first Spidey comic, or you remember reading it as a kid, or anything that you want to add to the conversation. Leave it in the comments below. I look at every comment for every video, so don't be shy. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Otherwise, you can't win free art. It's only for subscribers. So click that subscribe button. Help us build the community. Let's get to 1,000. In the meantime, don't forget, I'll be right here next week with even more Spider-Man. Thanks.